In ChatGPT, I just ask a few questions here. In Yemen since 2014, like how many war-related deaths have there been in Yemen? And ChatGPT gives us this number that by the end of 2021, approximately 377,000 people have died due to both direct and indirect causes related to the war. This figure includes fatalities from combat as well as deaths from hunger and disease exacerbated by the conflict. Cholera. It was horrific, and I watched, I remember from 2015 watching and 16, like, it's gone on. This war against Yemen, the US's war against Yemen has been going on for 10 years now. And all through Trump's presidency, his first presidency, he was very much supporting this. And in fact, I ask here I asked the number of deaths and wounded in the Gaza Strip since October 7th of 2023, when Hamas, you know, attacked the Israelis. They said they were trying to get the thousands of Palestinian hostages in Israeli prisons and jails. They were trying to take some hostages as like a bargaining chip to get some of their people back in exchange for these Israeli hostages that they took. But anyhow, it started this gigantic war of Israel just destroying that whole Gaza Strip, and with around 50, there are some people that say it's 10 times this, that it's 500,000 or 200,000. Like, nobody really knows, but sort of the low end, because Trump, supposedly there's 2.3 million Gazans, Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, but Trump talks about there being 1.8, so that's 500,000 less. So is Trump acknowledging that the death toll is 10 times this number? I don't know, because Trump is always just saying crazy stuff. Like, he just says, he just throws out numbers that are usually way off, and so but nobody really knows. But 70% of the casualties are women and children. Half of the population are children in the Gaza Strip. So, but then I asked, who and how were the Saudis helped in attacking Yemen since 2014? Because I know that it wasn't just Saudi Arabia; it was basically NATO. This was a NATO and Israeli. This was a war, of the West against the Houthis in Yemen. And so here it talks about Saudi Arabia since 2014, 2015 timeframe, that Saudi Arabia has received military, logistical, intelligence support from multiple countries um, to counter the Houthi rebels who've taken control of Yemen's capital of Sana'a. Here's a breakdown. So you got the United States sold billions of dollars worth of fighter jets, missiles, bombs, and drones, aerial refueling until 2018, intelligence and targeting assistance, logistical support. The UK also supplied, it says, fighter jets, Typhoon and Tornado bombs, missiles, training. It's just been enormous intelligence sharing. The UAE, they put in ground troops and all kinds of proxy forces like mercenaries, tons of fighters from Africa that the UAE and Saudi Arabia paid to fight against the Houthis, and they all got destroyed. The Houthis are the Houthis are like they're like the Taliban from that we fought for 20 years in Afghanistan, and then we finally gave up and left. That's what the Houthis are like. They will not give up. They will never give up. So Trump is making, I believe, an enormous mistake. He's just fallen into a trap, the same trap that Biden fell into, because Biden did the same thing. He started bombing the Houthis when they started their naval blockade or their embargo, you know, telling Israel not to send ships through because if they did, they would be attacked, and they were attacked. So Biden did the same thing. It never stopped the Houthis. It didn't work out, but Trump's now trying to do the same thing. So here it talks about how France also helped, sold artillery, guided bombs, etc., naval support, other countries. So again, this was basically the West, and it's in even again the Arabs. Saudi Arabia was the main one, but then the UAE, and you got all these other ones, Egypt and Sudan. Basically, it was the West against the Houthis, and they all lost. The Houthis won. They won the war. I mean, now it's starting over again, but it didn't work out. So my question is, why the big question for me, and I think for a lot of a lot of people around the world, especially Americans, they're asking themselves why is Israel, why are we getting into all of these wars for Israel? There's people that say, our war against Iraq, it was for Israel. All of this support to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, the government of, or the leader of Syria, that has been going on for the last 10 years as well, or longer. Why were we supporting Al-Qaeda, these moderate rebel groups that were nothing? They were never moderate. All the support went straight to Al-Qaeda, and they kept changing the name, Tahrir al-Sham and all these other different names, but it was Al-Qaeda and ISIS that were getting American support for years and years and years. And through WikiLeaks, it came out that, the US, like Hillary Clinton, she admitted it. She's like, it was being discussed, and even um, U.S. intelligence, they had the reports. I believe it was the DIA, I want to say, Defense Intelligence Agency, that said, that basically the U.S. is um, that the help from the West is helping basically a, a, a Salafist or Salafate, basically what's now taken over in Syria, that's what we've been trying to do for the last 10 years, and now we finally accomplish it. So the question is, why is, and it's not just Trump. Here we're going to listen to Nancy Pelosi. Let's
I
start
have
this
said
over.
to people when they ask me if this Capitol crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid, and I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel. That's fundamental to to.
So if you're on the liberal side, the Democrat side, it's the same thing. What did she say there? If our capital crumbles to the ground, if the Capitol building or Washington D.C., I don't know, but if the Capitol crumbles to the ground, we're still gonna remain committed to Israel. We're still gonna defend or support Israel. So, uh, again, to me, and I think many millions of Americans and others around the world, the question is why? Why why does Israel have um, such influence over our politicians, over Washington D.C.? Why is our commitment to Israel like unshakable? No matter what they do, no matter what happens, no matter what the consequences are, it doesn't matter. So the question is why? Why is that the case? And that's what I would like to delve into. I would like to. I am looking into it. I have looked into it, and I intend to continue to. And I have my view and what I've learned and what I would like to share, because I think it's very important and very relevant to us, to our country, to, it's putting the lives of Americans, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines at risk. It's been that case for a long time now. All of the money, the trillions of dollars that have been spent, it's, to me, that's probably the most important question of all, in terms of our country, in terms of our foreign policy, in terms of, the direction of our country, is why are we so um, enmeshed with Israel? And I tried to share the last time. The audio was bad. Hopefully, it's been better this time. Hopefully, you've been able to hear and understand me better. I had an echo on the last time, but I shared that there's an author, Whitney Webb. She wrote a book. Turned into two books. It was so big. I've got them right over there. I've uh, I've started to read them. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail, I believe is the title. One Nation Under Blackmail. And it's two big books, and it just goes over what's happened since World War II, how organized crime, how you know during World War II and ever since then, that the CIA and I believe it's the OSI that was the predecessor of the CIA, how they used organized crime, and they linked up with organized crime, and some of it was Israeli or whatever, and it just and there was the terrorist groups in Israel, Haganah, the various Israeli terrorist groups that once Israel declared itself a country, a nation, then they turned from terrorist groups into their armed forces, and so like the Mossad, how it's just completely intertwined, and they're joined at the hip with the CIA. And so Whitney Webb, she goes through and shows all that, shows how basically organized crime and the CIA and Mossad and all of that they're all linked, intertwined, and work together, and it's a problem, you know. And then you've got Jeffrey Epstein and how he's tied to all that and how he was protected, and it's pretty crazy. I don't know why I'm showing that screen right there, but anyhow, so um, the final thing here is, we're told. I was raised a Mormon, LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was taught from the day I was born, basically, that Israel and the Jews are like, you know I mean, it's the story of the Bible, right? The Old Testament, the New Testament, and that, for Christ to come again, and for there's the second coming of Jesus Christ, and for our salvation, and et cetera, for the millennium, 1,000 years of peace that Christ is going to come, like all these things, it's all linked to the Jews returning to Israel, the the return of the Jews, right, to Israel. And so everything is linked and tied ideologically, religiously, to Christianity, in terms of Christians in America, in the United States.